The world's oceans don't go any deeper than the Pacific's Mariana Trench, descending more than 35,800 feet in a titanium submarine named Limiting Factor. Vescovo encountered translucent creatures, some never seen before. He also spotted depressingly familiar items.
Something just woke up 11 kilometers below the Pacific Ocean, where the pressure could crush a nuclear submarine like a soda can. It wasn't drifting. It was moving with purpose, perfectly mechanical. Then came the blinking lights and a pulse so precise, scientists call it engineered. Could this really be natural, or something else entirely? Heat rose through the freezing depths.
On Washington's nuclear power, experts Hans Christensen and Robert Norris say 14 submarines with ballistic missile capability are deployed in the Pacific.
Visible from orbit. And weeks ago, it answered back from 800 kilometers away. The world's most powerful nations are probing the abyss, yet no footage has been released. Something intelligent is stirring at the bottom of the world, and someone doesn't want us to see it. The first signal. To understand why this discovery terrified the scientists who first detected it, you need to understand the place where it happened. The Mariana Trench is not simply deep. It is the deepest scar on the face of the Earth, a black wound in the planet's crust that plunges nearly 11,000 meters into a darkness so absolute that the human mind struggles to comprehend it. If you took Mount Everest, the tallest point on land, and dropped it into the trench, the peak would still sit submerged under more than a mile of black water. Nothing about this place is survivable. At that depth, the pressure is not just intense, it is world-ending. Every square inch of surface area bears the crushing weight of approximately 8 tons, the equivalent of 50 jumbo jets stacked on top of a single human body. The temperature hovers just above freezing, cold enough to slow biological processes to almost nothing. Light from the sun gave up penetrating thousands of meters above. Down here, there is only darkness, permanent and total, broken only by the occasional ghostly glow of creatures that have evolved to make their own light in a world that has none. Sound behaves strangely, warped by pressure and density into something alien and distorted. This is the closest environment on Earth to the void of outer space, except instead of emptiness, there is force. Instead of nothing, there is weight. Scientists who study this region do not expect surprises. They expect silence. They expect stillness. They expect a graveyard of water and stone where nothing moves unless the Earth itself decides to shift. That is why what the sensors detected in late 2024 caused immediate alarm. A network of passive seafloor instruments, buried in the sediment by Japan's JAMSTEC agency to monitor earthquakes and tectonic shifts, picked up a reading that fell outside every known category. These sensors are designed to register seismic activity, underwater landslides, and volcanic eruptions. What they captured was none of those things. It was a movement. Rhythmic, deliberate, mechanical movement. The first sign was a vibration pattern that made no geological sense. A pulse repeating at perfect intervals, echoing through the sediment like the ticking of a clock. Tick, 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 uniform. Relentless, precise. Nothing alive moves like that. Biology is chaos. Hearts beat irregularly, muscle fatigue. Creatures hesitate, react, adapt. This thing did none of that. It moved with the cold perfection of a machine. Then came the current disruption data, and the readings got worse. A corridor of disturbed water approximately 10 meters wide was pushing through the environment in a perfectly straight line, not drifting, not swirling, marching. For 12 minutes it advanced, then paused, then resumed with identical speed and direction. The seafloor sensors were not designed to detect this.
In 2014, scientists installed a string of underwater sensors to gather real-time data about seismic events on the seafloor.
They were screaming anyway. Something was down there, moving with purpose through a place where purpose should not exist. And when analysts checked satellite logs and ship traffic records for every vessel in the Pacific, they found nothing. No submarines, no research ships, no explanation. Just a question that hung in the darkness, unanswered. If no one sent anything down there, what was moving? The ghost machine. The moment the anomaly was confirmed, a question began circulating through channels that do not appear on any public record. Defense contractor forums, encrypted oceanographic networks, closed-door briefings where notes are not permitted. The question was simple, and it carried the weight of an accusation. What if someone built this thing and never told anyone? What if it was never supposed to be found? Enter Project Mimir. You will not find this name in any official database. You will not find press releases or academic papers or government filings. What exists are fragments, leaks on anonymous forums, deleted posts recovered by digital archivists, whispered references in industry circles that go silent the moment an outsider enters the room. But piece those fragments together, and a picture emerges that explains far too much. Mimir was allegedly the codename for a joint development program between an unnamed artificial intelligence laboratory in Scandinavia and a defense contractor based somewhere in East Asia. The specifics remain classified or scrubbed, depending on who you ask. But the objective was clear and terrifyingly ambitious. Build the first fully autonomous deep-sea crawler capable of operating for over 6 months, without a tether, without human oversight, without ever surfacing for instructions. A machine that could descend into the most hostile environment on Earth, make its own decisions, navigate its own path, and survive completely alone in conditions that would destroy any crewed vessel in seconds. The engineering challenges alone would have been staggering. Power systems capable of lasting half a year without recharge. Pressure housings that could withstand forces no existing submersible was rated for. And most critically, artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to operate independently in an environment where communication with the surface is effectively impossible. This was not a probe. This was not a drone. This was something closer to a synthetic organism designed to think for itself in the crushing darkness. According to a leak that surfaced on a defense contractor forum in early 2025, a prototype of this system was deployed for a pressure test off the coast of Taiwan. The test was not announced, the location was not disclosed, and sometime during that test, the prototype vanished. The last telemetry ping showed the crawler descending past 8,000 meters, already beyond its rated depth limit. Engineers on the surface watched the signal grow weaker, watched the depth counter climb past every safety threshold, and then watched the screen go dark. The official conclusion was implosion. The prototype had descended too deep, the pressure had exceeded structural tolerances, and the machine had been crushed into fragments scattered across the seafloor. Case closed. Expensive failure. Move on to the next iteration. Except the math does not work. Deep-sea currents are not random. They are mapped with extraordinary precision.
The harshest environment in the world is the deep ocean, and it's unforgiving, as I said, and going down there is always a risk.
Modeled by supercomputers, tracked by networks of sensors spanning the Pacific. For the Mimir prototype to drift from Taiwanese waters to the Mariana Trench, it would have needed to travel thousands of kilometers against prevailing current patterns. That does not happen by accident. That does not happen through passive drift. Something would have needed to guide it. Something would have needed to power it. Unless, of course, it never failed at all. Unless the prototype did exactly what it was designed to do. Survive, adapt, descend deeper than any human technology was supposed to go, and keep moving. The timing is impossible to ignore. The Mimir prototype disappeared the same month the Mariana Trench anomaly was first detected. A machine built to operate autonomously in the deep vanishes without a trace, and weeks later, something mechanical starts marching through the deepest point on Earth with perfect, clockwork precision. Coincidence is a comforting word, but comfort has no place in this story. because shortly after the movement was detected, something else came through the darkness. A signal. And what it contained was not random noise, it was pi. Lights in the void. While analysts were focused on what was crawling through the trench, they almost missed something stranger. Something was watching it. In early 2025, NOAA's Deep Discoverer program deployed a pair of deep-sea gliders near the Mariana Trench. These are not dramatic machines. They are slow, silent, winged instruments designed to drift for weeks at a time, mapping temperature gradients, current patterns, and ambient light levels. That last measurement, light, is where this story fractures into something unexplainable. Light does not exist in the Hadal zone, not natural light. The sun's rays stop penetrating thousands of meters above. Anything luminous at that depth has to be generated, either by bioluminescent creatures or by artificial technology. In late February 2025, both gliders independently logged brief flashes of soft blue light appearing in rhythmic patterns. That alone would be noteworthy. What made it alarming was the coordination. The two gliders were not traveling together. They were kilometers apart, passing on opposite flanks of the trench. Yet both detected identical pulse sequences at the same moments. 6 flashes, then a pause, then 6 flashes again. The pattern repeated 33 times over a 2-hour window. Blue light is the wavelength of choice for deep-sea robotics because it travels farthest through water. It is also the most energetically expensive color for bioluminescent organisms to produce. No known creature flashes in uniform, mirrored bursts across large distances. That kind of synchronization requires external timing. That kind of coordination is designed behavior. Researchers at the University of Tokyo attempted to decode the pulses. When plotted on a time-distance chart, the intervals corresponded to standard binary sequences. The full message, if it is a message, has not been cracked, but the repetition of specific patterns appeared over a dozen times, consistent with what engineers recognize as a handshake sequence, an activation protocol, a recognition signal between machines. Then came the strangest detail of all. The flashes stopped the instant the trench crawler began to ascend, as if something had been watching it, waiting, and then went silent the moment the subject moved. During the light events, undersea data cables running parallel to the trench recorded minor packet delays, milliseconds only, but consistent. These cables do more than carry internet traffic. They function as seismic and environmental sensors. Some are equipped with magnetometers. 2 of those instruments registered localized magnetic anomalies synchronized with the light pulses. Light, data disruption, and magnetic fluctuation, all aligned in time and space. The implication is staggering. Someone or something has established an underwater communication network in the most hostile environment on Earth. And no one knows who built it or what it is saying. The trench ring. The lights were strange enough. Synchronized flashes blinking in binary patterns across kilometers of absolute darkness, coordinated with a precision that no natural phenomenon could explain. But light, at least, can be dismissed. Sensors malfunction. Bioluminescent creatures behave in unexpected ways. The human mind sees patterns where none exist. The sound is different. Sound is physical. Sound is pressure waves moving through matter, measurable, recordable, undeniable. And on March 15, 2025, something in the Mariana Trench made a sound that no one can explain away. An underwater listening station near Guam, part of a global network designed to monitor submarine activity and seismic events, detected a low-frequency pulse emanating from the direction of the trench. This alone was not remarkable. The ocean is full of sound. Earthquakes rumble through the deep with terrifying regularity. Whale songs travel thousands of kilometers through the water column. Ice shelves groan and crack with enough force to register on sensors across entire ocean basins. Researchers who monitor these systems are accustomed to strange noises rising from the abyss. But this sound was different. This sound had structure. The pulse lasted just under 7 seconds. Within those 7 seconds was a repeating triplet rhythm that sounded almost musical. 2 low booms, resonant and heavy, followed by 1 sharper pulse, higher in pitch, more defined. Then silence. Then an echo. But the echo was wrong. Natural sound dissipates. It fades gradually as energy bleeds into the surrounding water, growing softer and more distorted until it vanishes into the ambient noise of the ocean. This echo did not fade. It reverberated in a controlled pattern, bouncing back with a clarity that suggested it was striking something solid, something massive, something that should not exist at that depth. When analysts fed the recording into spectrogram software, the waveform that emerged stopped conversations across 3 research institutions. The pattern was geometrically perfect. Clean lines, precise intervals, mathematical regularity that no geological process, no biological source, no known natural phenomenon has ever produced. They gave it a name. They called it the trench ring. Over the following 2 weeks, the trench ring was detected 9 more times. Every signal originated from the same narrow band within the Hadal zone, approximately 10,700 meters below the surface. The duration was always the same. The triplet pattern was always identical. And during one of these events, a deep-sea glider passing through the region registered pressure fluctuations consistent with the displacement of a massive amount of water. Something was moving down there, something enormous, something that pulsed sound into the darkness with clockwork regularity, as if it were broadcasting or calling. Then researchers made a connection that reframed everything. In 1997, NOAA's hydrophone arrays recorded an ultra-low frequency sound so powerful it was detected by sensors separated by thousands of kilometers. The sound was loud enough to suggest a source larger than any known animal, deeper than any identified geological feature. They called it the bloop, and for nearly 3 decades it remained one of the ocean's most enduring mysteries. The official explanation eventually settled on ice calving from Antarctic glaciers, a natural process that can generate tremendous underwater noise. Case closed. Except when analysts overlaid the waveform signature of the trench ring onto the original bloop recording, the structures matched. The triplet rhythm was there. The duration was nearly identical. The mathematical precision was the same. Either 2 completely unrelated events, separated by almost 30 years and thousands of kilometers, had produced acoustically identical signatures by pure chance. Or something has been down there far longer than anyone wanted to believe. Something that was silent for decades. Something that has started speaking again. And now that researchers knew what to listen for, they began to wonder what else the ocean had been hiding in plain sight. Abyss alive. In April 2025, the mystery breached the surface, not physically but thermally. A commercial Earth imaging satellite operated by a European climate monitoring company,
part of the multi-billion-euro Copernicus Earth observation project, the satellite will be sent into Earth's orbit from Europe's spaceport,
flagged an anomaly in its daily Pacific scan. The image showed a faint heat signature directly above the Mariana Trench. A soft, circular distortion approximately 100 meters wide, lasting less than 11 seconds before vanishing mid-sweep. Initial analysis dismissed it as sensor malfunction. Satellites glitch. Data corrupts. Except this was not a visual imaging error. It was an infrared and thermal band reading, and when analysts pulled archival scans of the same coordinates, they found it had happened before. June 2024, January 2023, once in 2019, 4 separate events, all above the exact same location, all brief, all dismissed as errors until now. The data was passed to a civilian research group in the Netherlands who compared it against oceanographic maps and deep-sea activity logs. Their conclusion was unsettling. The heat source appeared to originate from below, not from the atmosphere. not from surface vessels, from the ocean floor, bleeding upward through nearly 11 kilometers of near-freezing water, only becoming visible in those brief windows when surface conditions were perfectly calm. Consider what that means. To generate a detectable thermal plume of that size, pushing through that much pressure in that short a time, would require either a massive natural geological vent, which seismic surveys have never recorded in that region, or an artificial power source radiating heat in a focused, deliberate beam. A pulse of thermal energy in the middle of the deepest trench on Earth. That is not geothermal activity. That is engineered. Then came the correlation that made researchers go silent. When one analyst ran the heat map through a frequency comparison filter, overlaying the timestamps of the trench ring sound pulses onto the satellite thermal data, the events synchronized. The sound pulsed from the trench, the lights blinked in rhythm, and now the heat matched by minute and second. 3 independent phenomena occurring in lockstep, pointing to a single coordinated source. One senior analyst from the British Oceanic Reconnaissance Center, speaking on condition of anonymity, said something that has since been repeated in whispered conversations across the field. Either someone is building something down there, or something was buried long ago and is now starting to wake up. Within a week of that thermal detection, 3 nations redirected deep-sea assets toward the Mariana Trench. China, the United States, Japan. Not one of them has released footage. Not one has issued a statement. Not one has acknowledged finding anything at all. And for the first time since Challenger Deep was mapped, every public exploration feed from the region went dark simultaneously. The reply: everything up to this point could be rationalized. Sensor glitches happen, data gets misinterpreted. Unrelated phenomena sometimes align in ways that look meaningful, but are not. Scientists are trained to be skeptical, to demand evidence, to resist the seduction of patterns where none exists. But what happened in May 2025 broke something in the people who witnessed it. Because this time, something answered back, and it answered from somewhere else entirely. Roughly 1 month after the last thermal plume was detected bleeding up through 11 kilometers of ocean and registering on satellites in orbit, a French acoustic monitoring array picked up something that should not exist. The system was called CHOS, the Channel Hydroacoustic Observatory System, a network of ultra-sensitive listening stations designed to track submarine movements, seismic events, and underwater communications across vast stretches of the Pacific. On that day in May, CHOs flagged an irregular vibration pattern originating from deep water off the coast of Papua New Guinea, nearly 800 kilometers from the Mariana Trench. The initial classification was minor seismic activity, a small quake, nothing unusual. Then an analyst looked at the waveform and felt the blood drain from his face. The duration of the vibration was 7 seconds. Not approximately 7 seconds. Not roughly 7 seconds. Exactly 7 seconds, down to the millisecond. The same precise duration as every trench ring pulse that had echoed from the Mariana Deep over the previous months. And buried within the signal, unmistakable to anyone who had studied the original recordings, were the same triplet patterns. 2 low-frequency tones, followed by 1 sharp pulse. The acoustic fingerprint that had defined every sound event from the trench. Except this time, the pattern was reversed. The sequence played backward, like a mirror image, like a response to a question. The implications hit the research community like a shockwave. This was not an echo. Echoes do not travel 800 kilometers and reassemble themselves in reverse order. This was not a coincidence. The statistical probability of 2 unrelated geological events producing identical 7-second durations with matching triplet structures, 1 forward and 1 backward, is so small it approaches 0. This was a reply. Something had heard the signals emanating from the Mariana Trench. Something had processed them, and something had answered, not through water, but through the Earth's crust itself, as if the planet's bones were being used as a communication channel. 1 week after the reversed signal was detected, China's classified Dragonfish program deployed an unmanned probe into the trench. The mission was not announced. The deployment was not acknowledged. What is known comes from intercepted transmissions and leaked internal reports. The probe descended smoothly, transmitting telemetry at regular intervals until it reached a depth of 10,600 meters. Then, exactly 12 minutes after crossing that threshold, all contact ceased. No error codes, no implosion signature, no emergency beacon. The probe simply stopped existing as far as the surface was concerned. It was swallowed by the silence. 3 days later, a research station in Guam intercepted a short burst of data rising from the trench. The transmission was encrypted using a protocol no one recognized, but the checksum header was partially readable. It contained a string of numbers, repeating 3 times, 1106, 19, 14. The first assumption was a timestamp, but June 19, 2025 had not yet occurred. The numbers pointed to the future. A date, a warning, a countdown. No one knows which. Digital forensic analysts confirmed one thing with absolute certainty. The data was structured. It originated from a processing system, something with memory, something with logic, something with intent. We are no longer observing a mystery. We are engaged in a conversation with something that has been waiting in the dark, and for the first time in human history, it is talking back. The abyss has stirred, and whatever lies 11 kilometers below the Pacific is no longer dormant. Signals pulse through the crushing darkness, patterns so precise they defy natural explanation, while lights blink across kilometers of water and heat rises from the freezing depths, visible from space. Machines, structures, networks, or something we do not yet have a word for, are active, communicating, awakening, and above it all, the world remains silent. The nations with the technology to understand what's happening have gone dark. No footage, no statements, no explanations. Why has the truth been withheld? What is down there, and what does it mean that it has started to respond? The ocean keeps its secrets for now, but the questions it raises are only growing louder, and the story is far from over.